the good life for me is, I think, love and kindness are just underlined about 1,000 times. And I don't think there's enough of it in the world, but I think it's available for everybody. And I think it's the great healer, actually. It's very simple. I think things are way simpler than people make them out to be. So for me, slowing down, feeling the rhythms of things, deeply, deeply listening, whether you're listening to birds, which is such heaven for me, or listening to the waves in somebody's bodies that just want to be heard.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reflections on Living Well podcast, where we explore perspectives on the good life in the 21st century. I am your host, Broderick Rodell. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reflections on Living Well podcast. Today, our guest is Allison Post. Allison is an integrative medicine health coach and somatic educator. She was born and raised in New York City and spent much of her youth involved in music, dance, and theater arts. At the age of 19, she was beset with a challenging illness that persisted for many years. Because conventional medicine was not offering solutions, she began to explore the vast world of alternative therapies. Inspired by nutrition, exercise, meditation, and yoga, Allison began to share what she learned and found deep delight in providing support and helping others. Her curiosity has encouraged her to continuously study while she taught others. Breathing practice, meditation, healing, and movement traditions from around the world still inspire her. Some of those explorations include somatic psychology, hypnotherapy, Asian and Western bodywork, acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda and Yoga, functional medicine, and many lineages of craniosacral therapy. Hi, Allison. How are
Hi,
you?
great. How are you? Happy to be here with you.
Awesome. I'm happy to have you here. I admire all those things that you've been exploring and studying. I have delved into a lot of those things myself. I think that it's very interesting to explore these various healing modalities. And yeah, I'm just a little nerd. I like learning. And
Oh, I am a
so,
total nerd. I'm with you.
reading that bio, I was like, oh, wow, this is great. I love a person who's really interested in, who's multidimensional, really interested in studying and learning all kinds of different things.
There is so much to learn. It's really, I mean, I think I need 10 lifetimes. That's how
Right?
much. But we have one, maybe. So, but that's what I'm dealing with now.
Right.
So, so yeah, I'm always opening up something new because that's who we are as people. We're constantly learning and exploring and expanding our knowledge. And sometimes, it's a little kooky, and then sometimes it's amazing.
Right.
So, and whatever moves you,
Yeah.
it's a wonderful life, actually.
Yes, it is. Yes, indeed, it is. I know I just read that bio, but I like for folks to kind of share a little bit about themselves and yeah, how you feel in the moment, and how do you typically like to describe yourself, or however you like to do that.
Well, I have recently moved to the east coast of our country from the west coast. Grew up in New York, but I lived in California for 40 years. So I actually consider myself a native Californian and a recovered New Yorker. But I moved back to the East Coast to be by the beach. I live in the very northeast of Florida so that I can walk on the beach and enjoy a warmer life. And I live with my husband, who I am lucky to have been with for almost 40 years, and my beautiful dog. And I work online, and I go to California twice a year to work with my clients because I did it for so many years, and I've been working with some people for 30 to 40 years. So I love them so much, and I love my work so much. But at 68, it was kind of time to slow it down even more, because slowing down is a good thing for me on a daily basis. I'm very meditative and I take a lot of time for practice. But in general, there's, like I was saying, there's so many incredible things to do in this world that my husband always asks me where I get all my energy, because I kind of inspired by the sunshine in the morning and don't really want to go to sleep, but I know I have to. So, so I feel like I live a very good life and I'm blessed to be surrounded by love, actually.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Well, speaking of which, what is a good life? What does it mean to live well to you? What does that look like?
Um, it takes on a different tone on a daily basis. I think in general, for me, living a good life is being inspired by nature and seeing that it's not something to conquer, but it's actually something to work with. Once I learned, I always knew that, but from a very young age, I learned that all the rhythms and the cycles were there to behold. Everything that was inside of us was there to see on the outside, and we were so deeply connected to all of those waves and rhythms, whether I was sitting at the ocean or watching the breeze through the trees or actually getting to know trees. I love trees. They're like the ancient beings to me on the planet. I think if we slow down enough, that we are that, and it's just a delight to be led by that, so that you are slow and calm and deep, and that's what inspires thought and creativity for me. So I start with that kind of listening, and it also teaches me respect. It teaches me kindness. I'm I feel like as a result of all of that, I choose the most loving people to surround me. And if they're not loving, I love them anyway. The good life for me is, I think, love and kindness are just underlined about 1,000 times. And I don't think there's enough of it in the world, but I think it's available for everybody. And I think it's the great healer, actually. It's very simple. I think things are way simpler than people make them out to be. So for me, slowing down, feeling the rhythms of things, deeply, deeply listening, whether you're listening to birds, which is such heaven for me, or listening to the waves in somebody's bodies that just want to be heard. What an honor that is. And just to respect what you're hearing without wanting to change it, that has made life incredibly good, because we're not taught that. We're taught to change everything or to want certain things or to do things in a certain way. Even when I began body work, it was like, we do this and these are the techniques. And it's like, why don't we just listen to what's happening first? And then that body and our body will merge on some level in a healthy way, and you'll know what to do, because you'll be led by the truth and by what's real in somebody else's body. So the listening thing is like my gentle, kind listening. All of these things are just make my life so good, because I don't feel like I'm grasping after anything. I'm just here. And there's a bounty of beauty to behold if you can be here.
Hmm.
So,
That's
what do you
beautiful.
think? How about you?
I'll reflect back to you some of those things that you said, and that I absolutely agree with it, all of that. I connect with it. I resonate with all of that, and um, yeah, being out in nature, tuning into the rhythms of nature requires listening. I think I get that stillness, the silence that comes with that. It's very meditative.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And to be with nature, and nature teaches you the rhythms of nature teaches you that. And I think for me, a thing that really sticks out in what you were saying is listening.
Yeah.
deeply listening. And I think I've done some craniosacral therapy, and I remember that. Once you get over the first part, the techniques, here are these things that you do, that's this. But once you practice a little bit and just having your hands on someone and just listening deeply, it really taught me. Um, I think I would credit that as more of my first meditative practice,
I love to
was
hear that.
sitting and listening and not judging, not trying to fix. And
Exactly.
it really taught me something like, oh, wow, if you just listen, something will come.
Yeah,
And if you're really present and you're silent and you're still and you're open, you're receptive, magic can happen. And I
definitely.
love how you translate that to life in general. That
Yeah, it's,
deeply listening.
just a little part of it. Yeah, even when I teach craniosacral to others, I start with the meditative listening. It's like we're
Mm-hmm.
not going to learn techniques until you're in here
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing that, and you can actually listen to yourself, which is very difficult and challenging. That's
Mm-hmm.
why I think we distract ourselves a lot and go, oh, let me listen over there.
Right.
Or let me see what I can do over there. And what we need to teach is not doing and
Mm-hmm.
just becoming and being and watching the process within yourself. Even if it means you have a bellyache and you need to attend to it, whatever it is, it's there and you can be with it. And when you get into a neutral place where you're nice and still, then you can actually listen to the other with
Mm-hmm.
clarity, though, and without
Mm-hmm.
judgment and without being drawn into, but actually just knowing what's there.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's in any friendship or even with my doggy. It's really important to have that neutrality so that you can actually hear what somebody needs or wants or what they're saying or how exciting something is or how good that piece of music is even.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a wonderful thing.
It is, isn't it? This podcast, I think that, you know, this podcast is centered around exploring ideas, having a casual conversation about what living well is, and what we're doing now, and listening to each other. I'm trying to deeply listen to you and being open and encouraging the audience to do the same thing, is to be open and listening. It's not about agreeing or disagreeing at the moment. That'll come, but just listen and see. See where a person is coming from and see, and maybe you learn something. Maybe we learn and like, well, I definitely don't like that. And that's fine too.
That's fine. Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
disagree with that. Great. Okay, that's fine. Listen and see.
Yeah.
But do you understand where a person is coming from, possibly, and what could have possibly led to that way of thinking? And maybe by that listening to others, we can start to, and why I call it reflections on living well is to encourage self-reflection. And that self-reflection requires a deep listening to oneself. How do I see the world? What does living well mean to me? And
Yeah.
what can I learn from what Allison has to say about what living well means to me? And yeah, I just think I just love how you brought up listening and how critical and important it is to everything.
Yeah. It leads to the good life, I think. I love to listen to so many different things and so many different opinions,
Mm-hmm.
and lots that I disagree with. But that doesn't mean that I don't want to hear what people have to say, or I stop them from saying it, which is something that's kind of going on out there now. It's
Uh-huh.
like, don't stop it. You want to know.
You do.
You really
You.
do want to know because it's your world and you're a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, there are jewels in everything. I
Everything.
really believe it. No matter, even when sometimes you're like, wow, you keep just allowing it to unfold, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
huh, somebody feels that way because of this experience. What was
Yes.
that experience like? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, being some kind of doing therapy at all, you need to understand that there are all kinds of things going on in people's lives, in their experiences, and there's no judgment. There's just, wow, that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And let me take that in and be with you because
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a story, and if they're not heard, they won't be able to move beyond that story.
No.
So listening to them sometimes is the therapy. That's all they is. People say that to me all the time, like, oh my God, nobody's ever let me tell that whole thing. I feel so
Mm-hmm.
much better. I can breathe.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, wow, great. Let's start with the breathing now. Let's go
Yeah.
from that, because
Yeah.
that's where you are. That's you. That's your
Mm-hmm.
birthright and your gift.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, listening.
Yeah, I love how you brought that up too. I know we're riffing off listening right now, but I love it. And you just said something I think is important too, is that when I listen to someone, or when someone listens to me, when I feel like they're deeply and truly listening, what happens, I think the magic that takes place there is that we don't often talk about is that when someone is listening, say for instance to me deeply, and I'm sharing, they create a container. They open
Mm,
up the space to allow me to listen to myself.
totally.
And a lot of times when someone is deeply listening, a person will reveal something that they've never really revealed to themselves. Because someone is there as a listener, you're anchoring that person
Yes.
and allowing them to express themselves. And at first, it can be sound chaotic and noisy and like, okay, this is a little crazy, but just stay, hold on, and keep listening. Say, no, I'm here, I'm listening. And then something begins to happen. There's an unraveling that takes place.
Yes.
And there's some beneath that surface of our conscious awareness in our subconscious mind, there's a higher self, there's a more inclusive self, a larger self that
Yes.
peeks through and allows messages to come through in terms of how one is describing their experience. And it's just when you said that it's so important to listen, it made me think about that. I'm like, absolutely, not just for the person who's listening, but for the person who's being listened to. It's there. You're encouraging them to listen to themselves,
Yeah.
and that's powerful. That's powerful because sometimes things are revealed to oneself when you're felt heard by someone else, and that
Totally.
feeling heard by someone else allows you to hear yourself, and that's very therapeutic and
Definitely.
amazing.
Yes, and it doesn't happen more and more, I think, in the modern world. It doesn't happen very much.
No,
And the sound bites, and everybody wants it in little pieces instead of a long conversation to unravel things.
I
So
know. I
it's
know with this
it's good.
podcast, I want like I don't know if it ever happened, but I am like, no, I don't do shorts. People like, why don't you do shorts? Like these are less than a minute clip. I'm
There
like,
you
in
go.
this type of conversation, no, I'm not
Right.
gonna do that. I don't have people that are like, this podcast is long. I'm like, it's an hour. I'm like, that's too long for you to sit and listen to this type of conversation. That's fine. I'm not gonna judge you for it, but I'm not gonna change what I'm trying to do because it kind of contradicts a lot of what I'm saying, particularly with shorts. I
Exactly.
really don't like that.
Exactly.
For this
I
type of
hear you.
podcast, this is not, I'm not information peddling here. I'm not trying to sell you anything.
Exactly.
I'm just interested in us growing as people, learning from each other, and tailoring the conversation towards the good in the process. So no shorts from me.
Yay. Yay for you.
At least I don't. I'm not that technology savvy, so I don't know if it'll pop up. But I try to make sure on YouTube that um, that I don't create shorts myself, and I don't know if it automatically will at some point. But at any rate, um, where did all of this come from? I know you have all these interesting ideas. I know you, and I mentioned in the bio that you had a health concern at 19 years old. Can you share a little bit more about how you've come to see the world this way?
Yeah. I think how I came to see the world this way probably preceded that health concern because, like I said, I grew up in New York City. And that is an amazing place to grow up. I grew up amidst every culture, every type of music, every type of food. I grew up in museums. I grew up in a neighborhood where everybody lived together, actually in harmony. I thought the world was a much more harmonious place when I was a little girl because I had friends from every country in every background. I went to church, I went to temple, I ate every kind of food. I went to see my best friend Brooke's dad play saxophone. I went to bar mitzvahs. I went to baptisms. I mean, the whole world was there. That's what it's like. I mean, I lived maybe walking distance from the cloisters, so I lived near the medieval world as well. And I loved museums. And we took field trips as children to museums to learn
Mm.
history and what the world is like now in certain cultures. So I couldn't wait to get on a plane and travel when I was little. Like, when are we going to these countries? And my goal as a little girl was, when I'm 70, which is now only a couple of years away, I want to live 1 year in every country. I want to sell everything and just rent furnished places. And I want to live among the people in every country. I want to eat their food. I want to dance with them. I want to smell their flowers. I want to see their birds. Just want to know every craft and everything. So I was very much that. But on the other hand, I grew up in a household that made me want to be out of my house, which is why I was out so often, because my sister was very troubled, and it ended up that she had a psychotic break when I was 11 years old. And my mother had Great Depression, and my parents got divorced when I was really young. So it was very tumultuous, and there was a lot of tension, and I was kind of a mediator in a way, the good little girl. So, I had all these different things, and I wanted to be heard. I will tell you, that was one of the things I noticed. People didn't really have time to listen to me because we had to listen. And so I was in therapy at a really young age. And I didn't really care for it because I didn't think I was being told more than I was being listened to at the time. So I learned a lot as a little kid about why I wanted to be in the park. I started listening to a transistor radio at 3, and my listening skills got so attuned that my sister was studying piano at the time, and I learned how to play Für Elise at 4 by heart
Mm.
because I had the ear. I didn't know how to read music. I just one day sat down at the piano and played Beethoven. And, it was like I was listening the whole time, all the time, and I was very musical. So my friends were very musical. So I took solace in being with people, in connecting with people through something that had listening and song and love and connection without tension outside of my home. But I knew that there was strife and there were problems. I didn't grow up without them. So I had kind of a dual thing going on. And my teenage years were challenging. I did go to a music school for high school, which I loved, but I experimented with far too many things. And by the time I was 19, I was no longer, but I had gotten an IUD to protect me from becoming pregnant until I got married. And unfortunately, it was an IUD that years later was taken off the market because it actually killed 21 women, and it took the right of women, about 300,000 women, to bear children. It created infertility and then many, many other problems with scar tissue and all sorts of things. So that was my illness. And I was in the hospital at 19 for 5 weeks on IV antibiotics because I almost died. Um, and I smile saying this because I healed, but it took me decades. but it was through exploration and joy. It was because I knew that what I was being told was, gee, we're really sorry for you. I was like, don't be sorry for me. I'm going to find a way, because there's always a way. And so I was formed by always knowing I could get through it, because I had strife at home, but I always knew what the joys were out there. And that's what I was seeking all the time. And I also found that I had to be in my body, because nobody else was in there. And they were looking at me from the outside, or they were looking at me what they thought was the inside with photographs or blood tests, but they couldn't feel the life moving in in the moment that it was moving in. And I knew where the contractions were and what was going on, and maybe if I could move through those, that I could heal. And that's why I started pursuing yoga and breathing practice. I mean, I was a singer, so breathing was a big part of my life anyway, but this was different. And I just kind of found wonderful teachers. I'm so grateful to my teachers who taught me about movement and breath, and little by little, it wasn't easy, I have to say, but it was worth it. And even in the difficulties, oh my God, just more and more doors open that I had no idea would open. And I am here, and I'm 68. And I've had animals instead of children, but I've had so many children, because I went from being an actor and a singer to helping people heal and listening to them so deeply that many people always said, wow, you make me calm like my mom when she used to rock me in the cradle.
Mm-hmm.
Or, God, you listen to me like a good mama. So I feel like I was able, and I've worked with many, many children, which I love working with. So I turned it in after I got angry about it, which I think is important,
Yeah.
and I grieved, which I think is really important.
Mm-hmm.
I then, and you go back to it sometimes. You feel it, you let it come up, and then it can dissolve. But I learned, I mean, you never know what life is going to throw at you and where you're going to go. So I had no idea. I thought I was going to be an actor and a singer forever. That's it. Since I was like 2. But no, I did pursue it, and until I was about 28. I had my own theater company, and I always sang. But suddenly, what was important to me, and what I learned, and what I could do to help other people, just far exceeded what the theater would bring me.
Mm.
So
That's beautiful. Thank you. What a story. I think that you share something I feel like it's important when you started off saying, okay, I grew up in New York. And being in New York, I got exposed. And to talk about how important exposure is
yes.
to a larger world. Now, I grew up in a rural, small country town, and I did not get that kind of exposure
Where
at
did you grow
all.
up?
South Carolina,
Oh,
farm town, which I loved.
wow. The beautiful state. Oh my God.
Yeah, I still consider I'm a country boy at heart. Always will be. But I think that there's something that happens that I missed out on actually. When you
Mm.
get that kind of exposure to ideas and you can see that the world is a lot more um, complex, a
Mm.
lot bigger than you think it is. I think that is important because of what you said, how you described. I think you articulated very clearly why that is so valuable. Getting that type of exposure to so many different facets of the human story, the human, various human worldviews, angles at looking at things.
Mhm.
Because I think that that can help you better understand others. Or
Yes.
it can not, of course there's plenty of people who grew up in New York who are not great people, of course. But the fact that you were able to take advantage of the opportunities to have that type of exposure, to learn from others, to learn from different cultures, to get that kind of exposure at a young age is tremendous.
It was.
And to have that access to all of those different things uh, while having issues at home, challenges, to have resources when you're challenged is so important. I think it's a lesson for life. Even if you didn't grow up in it, that's something that you can work towards. I had to
Yes.
do that myself. Try to expand my mind a little bit, open myself up to different ways of seeing things. And what that has done for me is help me see the world with a little bit more clarity, help me
Mhm.
understand the world a little bit more, help me be a little bit more compassionate,
Yeah.
a little bit more empathic, because I see that the world is not just some small little narrow thing that I grew up in, for instance. I just think that's so important. And you mentioned another thing too is the challenges and how, with that kind of background, when you're challenged with something, an illness that's life threatening, such as what happened to you, uh, you had something. All the challenges in your home again, you had something to fall onto. You knew that there was something else out there in the world. There's something else available to me. There are other possibilities.
Yes.
Uh, and listeners, I hope you can see that, even if you don't have Allison's background, you don't grow up in New York and get that kind of exposure. There's something to a lesson in that, and that there's so much out there. There's so many possibilities out there. And even when we're troubled, even when we're having challenges in our lives, seek seeking out those possibilities, seeking and seeing what's out there. There's a lot. There's
It's
some
true.
craziness, but there's a lot of beauty. And if you open yourself up, if you go and search, you can get access to these things that can help you overcome the various challenges that will inevitably come to you in life. So I think that, though, I just wanted to just draw out that piece of the puzzle, of having that kind of background, even if you don't grow up in it. That's something that you can create for yourself by educating yourself to the best of your ability.
Yes. And I think that we would be surprised at how many people had deep adversity in their backgrounds. I know as a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
it was shocking to me from the time I started. Like, wow, I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really prepared for the depth of adversity that people had suffered,
Mm-hmm.
and the onslaught of cruelty sometimes. Um, and for some reason, that's what came to my door.
Mm-hmm.
Therapists, other psychotherapists immediately said, "Oh, if I worked on them, that they would go, oh, you understand. I'm going to be sending people to you now." I worked for over 20 years with a psychiatrist who was a homeopathic psychiatrist. But again, he said, oh, I need somebody that understands that's in their body that can help some of my patients. And that has boundaries. And, it's because you learn, but still, no matter what I had learned, no matter what I had seen, no matter what I had read, I was kind of stunned and in awe of what so many people went through. People you would think had a peaceable kingdom in their world
Mm-hmm.
when they walk in your door, the way they present themselves and talk. And then and I always take a history from in utero, actually, and from family. And you're just amazed at what I think there's more of that, and that when people are allowed to accept it and to understand that they too were walking in the deep sand, um, that then they can jump in the water and be refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, there is a lot of it. And I think it strengthens us because I have to say, one of the great things that I've learned from the work that I do is that people are heroes, actually.
Mm-hmm.
They inspire me with what they've broken through
Mm-hmm.
and how they live moment to moment, no matter what they have to hold. So, So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because we don't know what a person has gone through.
No.
I mean, most human beings that you're going to come across have had all kinds of crazy stuff happen to them in some capacity. And most of the time, they don't even remember it. It's not because they've shoved
Exactly.
it deep down into their subconscious in order for them to survive in a world. I know we mentioned, and you mentioned, and I say this a lot too, that the world is a beautiful place too, but boy, it's a lot of darkness, and there's darkness with the light, and you can, if you listen to a person's story, and then if they feel safe enough to share their story, so they can listen to their own story,
Hmm.
so it can be revealed to them, um, it'll shock you. I mean, I had that experience too when I was doing craniosacral therapy. I was really into counseling, sitting with people, and I still do that to an extent. It just blew my mind. I was just like, oh wow. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of, there's a lot of crazy making in the world, a lot
Yeah.
more
I
than
mean,
I
it's
thought.
human, isn't it? I think
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
part of being human,
Yeah.
and if we find safe places and we find connection
Hmm.
and conversations that can happen, I think it lightens up the darkness,
Hmm.
and we can be more neutral and we can be more balanced. But both of everything, the polarity exists. It's
Is there?
just it's humanity.
Hmm.
So
The blues are part of life.
that's it. It's true.
Yeah.
Good music.
Exactly. How do you, and I think what you said, the blues reminds me of this. It's like, how do you, what you said earlier when you slipped it in when you said that, yeah, you have hard things in your life, you work through it, you go through grief, and then sometimes it comes back
That's it.
and you
It
sit with it,
usually
and
somehow, some way,
it's gonna come
and
up.
especially we all suffer loss. I
I
mean, we lose
said,
people. You
yeah.
can't imagine. I mean, I have to say that very often people in certain professions, oh, didn't you get over that yet? Like it's been a long time. It's like I will never get over that.
No.
And I'm not going to take a drug so that I don't have to feel it. I
Mm-mm.
actually want to feel it. And sometimes it's unsuspecting when these things come up and it could upend you a little bit. But if you've allowed it to happen at some course in your life and it has surprised you, go, oh, I'm going to be surprised
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to allow it. And sometimes I'm just going to excuse myself. Even if I'm within a group, I'm going to I need to take a walk outside. I'll be back.
Mm-hmm.
Or could you take a walk with me? I would
Mm-hmm.
love to hold somebody's hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will pass because emotions will pass if they're felt.
Yes.
I mean, it's a phenomenal thing and they are kind of fleeting. But what makes them not fleeting is that we keep trying to stuff them down, like,
Yep.
no, 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 no. I'm strong. It's like the strength to feel is really what helps you heal.
That's
So,
strong.
yeah, that's
That's the real
strong.
strength.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
so I, bless the people that allow, but then also
Yeah.
don't dwell because it
Yeah.
is also the dwelling that's actually not allowing you to be with. You're creating
Exactly.
something else entirely. So there's, so many ways.
Yes, I'm glad you said that because yeah, because I want to remind the audience that that's not what we mean. It's not
Right,
doesn't. We're not
exactly. We
talking
don't
about
want, we're not talking
dwelling.
about,
No.
and we had to learn these things. I mean, I
Yeah.
used to be a great dweller in anxiety when I was in my early 20s. And one of my dearest, most wonderful friends, Michael, he would say to me, why don't you just roll? Let's just
Hmm.
roll down the hill or something, or just roll on the carpet. Just let it all, because you've been there. Okay, so it's not like don't let it come up, but then you don't want to carry it around permanently. You need to have an outlet, and you need to
Yeah.
have support and
Yeah.
connection in order to know that there is an outlet. So
Hmm. So all this is a part of the good life is being
all of it.
able to cope with, being able to sit with moments. Traumatic experience happens in your life. It may pop up in your mind, for some reason. And a lot of times, if you roll with it, if you sit with it, and again, not dwell, not fixate, but just
Exactly.
sit and be with it, there's usually a reason why it's coming up in that moment. It's
Exactly.
trying to reveal something. And it's also trying to, and of course, we're applying agency to this thing. But it's there's a revelation that is coming to bear in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen, and if you've been taught to listen and not to grasp, not to resist, not to fixate, but to just be with it, there's usually a little aha moment in there somewhere. Or maybe and it may not be cognitive. You may not have a set of words. You may not be able to apply any language to it, at least any words to it, terms. But there's a language in the body, possibly. There's something that's happening beneath the surface of your awareness. Maybe it's a continuation of the healing process that is popping up that you're ready for now that you were not ready for before.
Absolutely.
And so it's just a part of life. You can still live a good life. You can still live well and still have these traumatic, challenging moments resurface. Are you still going to have challenges, new traumatic
It's the life. Yeah.
experiences? Is life. And then those things in the past that pop up. We don't have to be afraid of them. We don't have to run away from them. And if we have the support that you're saying, which is an important part of having a good life, like for
Totally.
you, your dogs, your husband, you have these things in your life, and you have some tools, of course. These things, can facilitate goodness in one's life. Goodness is not just pleasure. It's not 100% pleasure throughout our lives. That's not what we're talking about.
No.
Goodness is what we're saying, I think, is my opinion, is that
Yeah.
I can sit with hard shit.
Yeah.
I can sit with challenging stuff. I can work through challenging stuff. And if I can't figure it out at that moment, I'm going to try to be resourceful to help me work through this challenge that I'm experiencing right now.
Absolutely.
Even though life is challenging, it's not pleasurable. I think for me, I'm like, man, I'm living a good life if I'm able to do that. And especially if I have resources and support network of some sort.
Agreed. And pleasure is good too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Just want to say.
Oh, yeah,
we
sure.
love that too.
We love
so
that
many
too.
pleasurable things.
Absolutely. Both of us, I love music too. And music is so pleasurable. Oh, it's so great.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievably pleasurable. So I have no problem with pleasure.
Yeah.
So we're not saying that either.
No. I hear
you. Earlier, you also mentioned something that I think that I haven't forgotten that I think that sticks out a lot too, and I resonate with that. That's my daily mantra, and is that loving kindness is at the foundation of it all.
Yes.
The driving, motivating force. Can you elaborate on that from your perspective?
Oh my goodness. Loving kindness. I mean, loving kindness toward yourself to start out with, which is really, really important. And having it reflect back to you as a result of having it in yourself. It's hard to feel love and to give love if there's not some place that recognizes that in yourself. I think we need that to feel that from a very young age, actually. And just, just the hugs and the warmth and this, it's not even support, even though it's supportive. But I think that love is the way, for anything else. There's nothing that, my heart floods even when I think about it. It is just so wonderful to feel love for where you are right now, to feel love for your body, to feel love for all these beautiful things around you, and to feel that you're exchanging love whether that exchange is with a human or an animal or with the soil.
Mm-hmm.
It makes everything worthwhile to me. I wake up like that in the morning. I always said I must have been born on the right side of the bed, because I wake up smiling, full of, what's yummy today. And I feel like the first thing I want to do is kiss my husband and schmoogie with my dog. I want to give love and feel love immediately. It's like, without overwhelming anybody. But it's, there's just nothing better. There's nothing better than being even on Zoom with my best friend and listening and seeing her. And I've known her since we were 10 years old, and knowing how much love in all of these years has transpired between us. Or my new neighbor who I adore, who I just see her and my heart opens. I mean, love is part of life, and you reflect it and it reflects right back to you. I believe it. And even if you feel hurt or you've been hurt, all you have to do is look out there a little bit, and then it'll help you to look in there. And it's just the way. No, I think nothing comes close. And that's the good life, really. The good life is not material to me. I mean, it's nice, but it's not. My father used to tell me when I was a kid, God, you have lofty ideas. I hope you learn how to earn a living, because it is important. Because I used to see, why is everybody so concerned about buying things and material things? And he'd say, because, honey, money makes honey. And I would be like, bees make honey, Daddy. Bees make honey. Because really, it is the love that is going to let you appreciate anything that you do, that you participate in, that you buy, that you practice, because you can settle into this feeling of being part of. You're part of the globe, you're part of the universe. It's a huge feeling, actually, to me. I can look at the stars, and I have the same feeling of just excitement and openness and goodness that I have when I'm kissing my husband, literally. It's just amazing to me how available love is.
Mm,
So
I love it.
I'm kind of a love bug.
Me too. I love it. I love it. I love it. I was going to ask you, what does love feel like? And you kind of said it there with that openness. And yeah, can
Yeah,
you
it
say a little
feels
bit
like
more?
everything. It feels
Mm,
like everything good and everything right. And even I have to say, when I'm working with my clients or with people that I know, I feel love. I believe that it is the love, that feeling of I'm open, I hear you, we're connected, we're part of
mm,
all of this, we're walking this path together, and I just love you.
mm,
And that's where I sit, in that love. I just bask in it.
mm,
So it's not overwhelming, and it doesn't cloud any vision. It actually opens up the vision, and it opens the ears and the heart and the
yeah.
mind. So,
Hmm. Yes, 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 yes. And I'm glad you clarified that too. Um, Possibly clarification for people, and just in case they see things slightly different with love. And love is not attachment.
no.
It's not clinging. I know there's different words for attachment, different ways of talking about attachment, but what I mean, the negative aspects of attachment. That's not what love is. It's not grasping. It's not clinging.
No.
Um, it's but there if there's no openness in love, in connection, in deep connection, then it's grasping, it's clinging. There's something. There's a contraction that's taking place, and it's a we're denying love actually in those moments. We're resisting love, and we're thinking that we're grasping onto it, we're attached to it, or we're clinging to it. And I'm like, actually, that grasping, that attachment, that clinging is a form of contraction. It's
Yeah.
not. It's actually inhibiting our capacity to fully feel and experience that love. And for me, I think that's a practice for me, that I'm doing my best to practice allowing myself to really feel that resonance, that connection, and overcoming any form of attachment, any kind of contraction around that. And yeah, it drives me, it motivates me. That's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why I do practically everything I'm doing these days. Or actually, I most things I'm doing, I have to do certain things in order to make money to pay
Well,
the
we do
bills.
do that.
You gotta do
We
that
do.
too.
But hopefully you use the skills that enlightened you and
Exactly,
that enlighten
exactly,
others so that it's still a pleasure. There's nothing wrong
exactly.
with earning money. I
No,
don't have
absolutely.
I think it's nice to live in a home.
Yeah.
I think it's nice to be able to buy organic food. That's quite a privilege, actually.
Hmm.
So, you can make choices. And I think that it's nice to be remunerated. I don't have a problem with that. I meant when
Mm-mm.
I was a little girl, I was like, why do people talk about this? And what's the stock market and all these crazy
Hmm.
things? Why do people get controlled by it? Really,
Exactly.
it's the grasping. But it's a way of exchange,
Yeah.
and if I think one of the questions that you posed to me to think about was, what would my utopia be?
Hmm.
And my utopia would be a world led by love and peace.
Hmm.
Certainly, I'm sure most people would answer that. Um, but it would also be a world where we used our resources, which are plentiful, for
Hmm.
everybody,
Yeah.
where we regenerated the soil, we didn't destroy the soil, where we were constantly seeking ways to buoy our resources
Yeah.
and to share them with each other, no matter what religion somebody was interested in pursuing, or what craft or what music. Or it's like, great, live and let live, please enjoy yourself, but let's all get together. Let's
Hmm.
learn from the time we can talk that we have so much to share, so much to build, so many resources on the planet, that we don't need one person to have many when many people have nothing.
Hmm.
That, I mean, that should be illegal to me. It's like, and I know everybody says that's not freedom. It's like, freedom to me is that everybody is free and that we share in all these phenomenal resources. And I do believe we can have boundaries, that we can have borders. I have that. That's my body, my skin, my electromagnetic field, is for me to walk around in. But then I can learn how to share that with somebody else and not feel threatened by it.
Hmm.
But realize, like, look, we could do this together. There's just
Yes.
all this incredible stuff that we could do, and nobody needs to want. But I think people need to want a little less. I don't think you need 7 homes and 12 cars. And, I mean, it gets to be an addiction, unfortunately. And I don't see why we almost encourage it, and then we bow down to it as if those are our gods, the people that have all of that. It's
Hmm.
like, I wouldn't want all of that. I'd like to be anonymous anyway. Another reason why I didn't pursue my career fully, because I love privacy, and
Hmm.
I guess I'm an extroverted introvert, maybe. But I just feel that I don't understand, where's the love in having too much and not wanting everybody to have
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
So, I don't know how we get there, but I think we start like this, just what you're
Hmm.
doing. We start by talking about it. It's like the cosmic consciousness, the 100th monkey, people think you're a little cuckoo when you talk about these things, but I've seen it. I've seen it in my own classes for teaching people that somebody or a few people would be like really skeptical. And by the end of a 4-day, they're all in love.
Mhm.
And they're like, oh,
Yeah, right.
you made it easy for that to happen for me because you didn't push it on me. You didn't
Hmm.
tell me it was the way. You said it was a way, and maybe I
Hmm.
should consider it,
Exactly.
right? And then I did
Exactly.
consider it, and boy, that felt yummy.
Hmm.
So, I think we could do that. And, so
Oh God, I love it. We can. I think
we
we
can.
can, and we're doing it. You and I are doing it right now, and we just met.
That's true.
And I think that that those possibilities are available to us. And then again, that's what that motivates me. And yeah, if I'm going to get I can never say the word right.
Remunerated.
Yeah, remunerated. It's hard for me to say
It's
that
a
for some
funny
reason.
word,
I
yeah.
lo- I like saying it just because it's hard, but uh, and no, yeah, bring the money on. Sure, I have a problem with it, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
and then if you
motivate
get
me.
too much of it, you could give it away.
I know
It's so
it,
fabulous.
right? It is, and I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm like, this is what motivates me, and if I can help others see that love is possible, and it's so great, it's so wonderful, and if we can work towards it in some capacity, I don't know how to do it either. That's why we're having these conversations right here.
that's
Like,
it.
I don't know, let's talk about it. Let's see.
But it's
um
possible. There are
it's oh
seas of
yeah,
possibilities. I believe it.
exactly. Me too. We all experience it. Everybody experiences to an extent. I shouldn't say everybody. Most people, I'm sure, experience love to some extent, even if it's only a very small percentage of their life that they experience it. Because I do, I hear that there are people out here that don't experience very much love. So I'm not living in la la land on that. But even with that little bit is just a little glimpse of what's possible. And what can we do as individuals who have the privilege to be more loving in the world, to shine the light of love in the world? I think it's my responsibility to do
I
that.
agreed.
And if I do that more, I increase the likelihood of others doing that. And then, I get the resources. How do I help create favorable conditions for others? There's healing that needs to be done. There's all kinds of things that need to be done. We do need boundaries, like you said. We do need constraint. Sometimes I said,
Yes.
even somebody like me, when I was um, younger and silly when you're young, and you do stupid shit,
You
and
too.
it's good to have boundaries. It's good to be like, hey man, you can't do that. You can't
Exactly.
behave like that, and there needs to be boundaries and consequences. That's a part of love to me. And
Totally.
but
To
those
be to
boundaries,
have that firmness
yeah.
exhibited to you, like, hey, that would be a no. No
Hmm.
is not, it's not a bad word.
No,
So, but
especially
in a container
that's right
of
in
kindness,
that's
right?
right, in the container of love, the container of
That's
connection.
it.
Like, hey, that behavior is not loving, and you need to be restrained because that behavior that you're involved in is not loving. And so, okay, then I engaged in a behavior that wasn't loving. So, can someone help me? All right, help me get the tools. Help me
That's
figure
it.
this out. What was wrong about my behavior? Help me do better. And if someone helped me, if I this is not me. I have not done this kind of stuff like this. But say if I was just engaged in horrible things, I've done lots of horrible things. And if no one ever loved me and gave me the opportunity, and no one ever taught me about what love is and the possibility of love, and no one ever helped me heal whatever traumatic experiences that may have led me to be this way, or even it's in utero, whatever
Yeah.
problems I may have neurologically, can I get the support? Can someone help me move me in a direction towards love versus just punitive punishment of like, oh, well, you did this horrible thing, then you got to go. I'm going to eliminate you from society.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
like,
hear
actually, if
you.
you help me, maybe it's because I've gone through that, I may be able to help other people as a
That's
result of
right.
that.
Absolutely.
and help make the world a more loving place in the process. So yeah, I'm with you, Allison. This has been
Yeah,
great.
we can do it.
Yeah, I love that. I really believe that, my whole heart and soul. It motivates me. That's what gets me up every day. It
Yeah.
literally, that belief that we can do this. And I might not experience it all in the way I want, my utopia in my lifetime. Actually, I know I won't. But while I'm living, I'm going to do my damnedest to contribute to making it possible. Maybe a
I'm with you.
thousand years from now,
Maybe
that
less. I don't know.
maybe less. I don't
Sometimes you
know.
think there's almost like a volcano that's about to erupt, and maybe
Hmm.
out of the ashes will come
Right.
a new way. That's how it feels kind of right now. But I
Right.
know so many amazing people on this planet. I have faith.
Yeah,
I
me
really
too.
have faith.
Me too. This has been great, Allison. I say this a lot in these podcasts. I think I feel blessed that I can say that I could just continue to speak with you for hours. That's an indication that I'm a really blessed person to have such wonderful people in my life, such wonderful people to have this type of conversation with. It gives me hope.
Yeah.
I really love that you love so much. That love is foundational to you, and
Mhm.
yeah, we're siblings in that.
Yay.
Because that's a major motivating factor in my life.
Yes, you are my brother from the true mother.
Right? Exactly. Exactly.
It's a pleasure. And may
Yeah.
it continue with your beautiful
Mhm.
conversations and the love
Yeah.
that surrounds you.
Oh, thank you so much. Are there any I'll ask one final thing. Is there any final words that you would like to share with the audience before we sign off here?
Well, I would love you to meet my dog, actually.
Sounds great. Oh, so cute.
This is our Mia ballerina. We call her Ms. Foxy Brown, right? You
She
say hi to
is.
Broderick? She's the sweetest pea.
Oh.
Oh my goodness, you were sleeping with your dad. So
Mm,
this is our love. This is
awesome.
love.
Awesome. So those of you who are just listening to this, you got to go look at the video of this very beautiful, cute doggy.
You
Yeah.
want to show them how gorgeous you are? Look at this doggy. Look at this. She walks around with this tail. It's crazy, right, Booty? I love to show her
Oh,
off.
that's
She's the love
awesome.
of my life besides my husband.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing your doggy here at the end there with the audience. And this has just been such a pleasure, and looking forward to many more conversations in the future.
Absolutely. Take care.
You too. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I hope this conversation has inspired you to reflect on your own views of the good life. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more inspiring and thought-provoking conversations, please follow, write a review, and rate us on your favorite podcast app. If you are tuning in on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support is very much appreciated.